As you could probably imagine, the way you view your interactions with women is going to largely determine how your interactions with them actually turn out. So for example, if you get into a conversation with a girl and she's touching you and she's telling you how much she likes you, but you simply just cannot believe that a girl would be into you that way, she can throw any sign at you and you're still not going to recognize it. So that's what this section is for. It's just for teaching you how to think and view situations so that every time you get into a conversation with a girl, you know what to do and you know how to think. And don't worry if it takes a long time to realize this stuff on a deep level, because it really will take a long time, at least for many people. The reason is because as you continue to go out, it's going to make more and more sense, but this stuff is very profound. It's actually very difficult to realize on a deep level, and the way you realize it a year from now is obviously going to be way deeper than the way you realize it now, especially if you continue to go out and practice everything I teach you. But don't worry, you're going to get laid loads on the way. So as I mentioned in the last video, night game spots are very often hookup spots, and I think most people realize that on a deep level, but on a surface level they act like it's not true. So they act like hooking up is the last thing that a girl wants happening that night, that it's really not that important to her. And I think if that was true, they wouldn't come out dressed up all hot with their ass and tits out and wearing outfits that you could see all the definition of their body. They wouldn't be making out with guys they just met. They wouldn't be making out with their girlfriends. They wouldn't be dancing in very sexual ways where their asses are grinding into a guy behind them's crotch, or playing what everyone calls mock lesbian, where they're making out with their girlfriends or acting super lesbian like. And they definitely would not go to a club slamming down shots which is a venue that they know that guys are going to be hitting on them. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't add up. And I've even heard guys go as far as to say that girls go to the club to build their social value. I think that's one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard, because if a girl wanted to build her social value, she would stay in a bookstore or stay inside studying or reading, or she'd go to a fundraiser or a charity event or someplace where she was probably drinking champagne and fine wines and eating nice cheeses. But instead, she's actually at the club knowing where she's going to get approached and pretty much doing everything that's going to only make it more likely that she's going to get approached. So I know this is not every single girl, but it is many of them. You know, some girls actually were just dragged there even though they have boyfriends that they're loyal to or some other reason, but plenty of the girls are down to hook up. So when I say night game spots, I'm referring to areas where people are going to be socializing, where they're going to be partying and drinking and arguably making a bunch of, kind of dumb decisions, maybe impulsive decisions where they wouldn't necessarily want their bosses or their parents seeing what they're doing. So I'm talking about, let's say, concerts or music festivals or house parties. It could also be nightclubs or bars or the areas outside of bars. So let's say if there's a strip of bars and there's a street in between them, that area is also night game. And it's pretty much going to be any area that resembles what happens in these environments with all the drinking and smoking weed or whatever else, and they're really not in the most professional mindset. And so these areas are obviously going to be different than a lot of the daytime spots. So for example, the way people interact in these places is obviously way different than the way they interact in a library or a cafe or their college campus or something like that. And that's why we have an entirely different course, which we call day game. And that's why, because it's a completely different mindset, we need a completely different course. So from the spots I mentioned, I also want you to realize that they're not all the same. Some of those spots are really way harder to pull from than others. So for example, no matter how cool you are and how smart you are and funny you are and how good looking you are, if the girl just spent some serious cash on an entrance fee, or she still has drink tickets that she spent a lot of money on and doesn't want to waste them, or she spent a lot of time in line just to get into the venue, it could be pretty challenging to get her outside of the venue 5 minutes after you met her, which you can do at other venues like, your average bar or your average, somewhere where people are not necessarily as committed to staying at the venue. So the venues that I'm talking about that are not so good for bowling are, let's say, music festivals, concerts, Las Vegas, mega clubs, those types of venues, because people don't want to leave them so easily. I will say, though, that those venues could be really, really good if you just want to collect a bunch of phone numbers. And so let's say because you have so much time there, you could spend a lot of time with many different girls, solidify the interaction, and then set up a lot of solid dates, so then you could walk out with a dozen phone numbers and dates instead of just taking out one girl, bringing one girl home, and missing out on all the others. So as I've said so many times before, all girls are down to fuck, right? I've said that so many times, and that's even more important to realize in the nightclub, because if they're ready to go and you're wasting all this time chit-chatting and talking about things that have nothing to do with you two hooking up, or at least don't lead them in that direction, they're going to leave you the same way that you would leave a girl if you approached her and she wasn't giving you the type of attention that you wanted. So realize escalating on them and being sexual with them actually makes a lot of sense, and not doing that makes no sense to them. The only women that tend to be an exception of this are women that are emotionally unavailable because they have boyfriends or whatever else. Maybe they lost their father the night before or something. Or girls that have a very particular taste in guys, like she doesn't like, white guys, but she likes black guys, which does happen, but it's not the rarest thing that she completely blocks out all white guys. So because some girls will be down and other girls won't, even if they're down to hook up, they might not necessarily be down to hook up with you right then. And so that's why it's always important to continue moving the interaction forward, closer to sex, and giving her a chance to reject you, so that this way the girls who don't reject you are the girls who come home with you. Meaning, you're not to be afraid of rejection. You actually want to push the entire way to see if she will reject you as you're continuing to lead her forward. And from there, you're going to close any girl that actually does come with you, and you're going to have every girl who doesn't like you reject you. And a lot of girls actually, surprisingly, the fact that they see you going for it, you're less likely to get rejected because you're so willing to get rejected. You're not as likely. I guess it turns them on to see that you don't care. So also I want you to realize that a lot of guys feel like, oh, getting rejected is a bad thing. But if you think about it, to think you'll never get rejected is very similar to saying Michael Jordan never missed a shot, which we all know is ridiculous, but we all still consider him a legend. And I want you to know, look, no single interaction or single night out, no single week or month out has anything to do with your value, okay? You could get rejected without being a reject, the same way you could do something stupid without being a stupid person. I want you to really learn to own your sexuality, and then realize that it's pretty much a part of who you are. It's not going away, and that having a really fun sexual side is actually a very cool and exciting thing that a lot of girls are going to appreciate if you own it properly. It's pretty funny because I still see to this day that almost every single guy out hides the fact that he's a sexual dude and that he came out to meet a hot chick that's a great girl and have awesome sex with her, as if it's such a bad thing that they should want that, as if they need to be ashamed and hide it. And it's really not. I don't want you to ever think that way, because as I said many times earlier, especially with the club, these are all hookup spots. These are spots that the whole world universally thinks is a hookup spot. And that's why when a girl gives you shit about it, you need to see her as if she's like kind of full of crap. Like, dude, you're at a hookup spot. What do you mean you're telling me you're not that kind of girl? For whatever reason, she needs people to not see her as that kind of girl. And you can't buy into that. You need to see every girl as if she wants sex. And you need to look at her and see, okay, well, she's dressed pretty fucking hot. She has sex written all over her. She's probably full of crap. So you want to playfully call her out. And you'll say, oh, yeah, my bad. You're right. I did not realize that I thought you were that kind of girl because the way you were dressed and you look pretty sexy. But yeah, sex isn't for me either. Or just saying, yeah, you're right. I have tons of female friends and I've dated a lot of girls. And so it's kind of, I'm sorry, I just can't buy into that. That is so ridiculous. Look, it's okay. And when you take that frame, she could lower her guard and be like, oh, I could be myself with this guy. I could show this side of myself and not feel like, oh, I'm going to become a low value chick by doing this. So the strategy I really want you to take on is that you want to frame every interaction with the girl within the first few minutes of meeting her that you want her coming home with you. And then you're going to test based on how well she follows your lead, as well as you're going to test for any obstacles that are in the way. And you're going to keep leading her home until the moment, again, she rejects you or she comes with you. And on the way home, you're going to basically continue to lead the interaction and build all that comfort there. Instead of on the club, you're going to build it on the way home. So you're going to follow a plan A, plan B, plan C structure, where plan A is, I want you to try to take her home right then and there, because a lot of girls will be down for it. Then there's going to be plan B, which is you're going to set plans to take her home later on. So meaning she might be busy right now and can't hang out for whatever reason. You set plans to meet up with her sometime before she goes home that night. Plan C is you'll set up a date to meet her all together where logistics are more in your favor because anything that was stopping her before that might stop her, they're not there. You're going to meet her in a one-on-one situation close to your home, as I'll talk about in the date section. Now, it's important to realize that every girl that you meet is almost like as if they're on a date with you. So meaning you want to see her as if she came there with you, she's leaving with you, you guys both want to have a great time together. And the reason why I want you to see it that way is because you wouldn't leave your date if she was kind of shy at first or not very talkative. So you're not going to do that here. You're also not going to do that if, let's say, you see the girl and you're like, oh my God, this girl's so hot. I don't know if I could, if maybe she's out of my league, which again, you're not allowed to think. But either way, you'll just learn that over time from experience that they're not out of your league. And so, but again, you're not allowed to leave the girl. You're just going to assume the way you're on a date with her, you wouldn't just leave, you'd stay until the end. Same thing here. And similarly, when you attempt to escalate on her or when you invite her back to your home, as I'll explain in the upcoming sections, you need to be patient with her. You're going to push for it. You're going to suggest that you're going to try to lead it in that direction. But if she's not 100% ready right away, you're still going to just be patient. You're like, okay, look, whenever you're ready, but this is going to be a lot of fun when it happens, just so you know. It should really be coming from this frame of like, we came together, so we're going to leave together. And, oh, you're not ready to go yet? Well, look, I'm not going without you. You don't want to have like an after party together, create our own little after party? Okay, fine. So we'll stay here. It's fine, right? And you need to really buy into that. So there's no room for ego. There's no room for insecurities. There's no room for feelings of like, I'm not good enough. You need to cut that out because it's all ridiculous self-doubt crap that really won't help you, and it's you placing judgment on yourself that you're just not good enough for whatever reason. And oftentimes my students, when I actually push them to approach, what do? They think, oh no, but that girl's too pretty, and I'll make them go in anyway because look, again, you're not to ever think that no girl's too good for you, and they'll go there and all of a sudden the girl loves them. And what'll also happen is they'll have an interaction with a girl. It'll look pretty good. They'll walk away a few minutes later and I'll say, yo, what happened? That looked pretty good. You say, oh yeah, I ran out of things to say or I didn't know what to do next. And I say, oh, okay, well, what did you think was the right answer? And the answer that they come up with is always a long list. Oh, I wanted to take her number and ask her out. I wanted to make out with her. I wanted to touch her. I wanted to lead her to my home. And it's so funny because everyone acts like they don't have the right answer when they actually did have the right answer and they just kind of doubted it. And so I don't want you to do that either. I want you to trust, look, you're a smart guy, you have a decent amount of human interaction experience. So if you're thinking the right answer, especially while you're in the moment with her, is to go for the makeout, then that's probably the right answer. And I want to give you an example of how bad this self-doubt is. There's a study by Harvard where they talk about that there's 90% of students at their freshman orientation raise their hand when they're asked to do so if they think they're the one student that was handpicked by mistake. And 90% of them raise their hand, which is crazy. So look, they were handpicked. So the same thing with you. Self-doubt is crap. You can't buy into it. You can't let it affect you. You just have to think, okay, I'm a smart guy. I'm so-and-so years old. And so I probably have a pretty decent idea. I was talking to her. If I wanted to make out with her, that was probably the right decision. I also want you to realize that, look, even with all the failures, failure is just part of the learning process, and it's really okay to screw up and get the wrong answer sometimes. You just need to learn from it. It's like my friend always says, look, it's only a failure if you don't learn from it. So look, you had the right answer probably, you just didn't act on it, and even if you get it wrong, you're just going to learn from it. So you're going to have to trust that everything you have to say or everything you want to say and everything you want to do is perfectly fine, and that most people actually probably want it, and that there's no reason to assume otherwise because you're not trying to do anything offensive, so why would anyone not want to hear what you have to say? And you have no reason to try to protect your self-image either because, again, who cares? In the grand scheme of things, no single interaction that you have is actually going to make a difference at all in who you are as a person or who you will be. So yeah, your game is 10 out of 10. Always, and you're never allowed to doubt that. You always need to trust that and always think, okay, I'm the shit, I'm the smartest, I'm the greatest. I know it's a little bit narcissistic and maybe egotistical. You want to own that and be like, yeah, I'm a smart guy, I'm well-dressed, I'm awesome. And then you're going to take that trust you have and you're going to lead the interaction without ever expecting the girl to lead it, because every single time you look at a girl and you expect her to take responsibility for the interaction, whether it's having the conversation or it's approaching you. Every single time you wait for her to do something, it's less likely that you're going to have sex, and you're definitely not going to improve in this skill set, okay? So meaning you're not allowed to say things like, oh, she was so boring, or if she liked me, she would have asked for my number. You need to believe it's all your fault without hating on yourself, and you need to believe that, look, if it's going to happen, I need to be the one to make it happen, because even if you're right, and sometimes it will happen on its own, and you might have that friend who's gorgeous, who girls approach him, it's still not that common compared to how many girls are out there that you still want to meet and that you want to have something with. So again, equate that you need to take responsibility for everything, and that every time you take responsibility, you're going to get laid more, and your results are going to improve, and therefore more and more girls are going to like you because your results will keep getting better and better as your skill set gets better and better.